Something a little bit different from the music post for just a second because the Odyssey movie's coming out this weekend. I'm super excited. I've got tickets to go see it in IMAX, and it's creating a lot of buzz, which is great. And I'm throwing my take on the pile here, but really, better yet, I'm throwing Joseph Campbell's take on it. The first time I heard his take on the Odyssey, I honestly jumped out of that chair. I mean, it just hit me so hard. It clarified a bunch of the life choices I'd already made without even realizing why. And it also has instructed a lot of my life choices since then. His work is too good to languish in a book. And with the movie coming on the off chance that this might help you enjoy it more or enjoy the poem, I made this video just to keep his work out there. Maybe it'll touch someone the way it did me. So here we go. You probably know that the Odyssey is like a very old 2,800 year poem. And it was retold hundreds of years before that as a song, like kind of the way we would used to sing the ABC song when we were kids so that we'd learn it and not forget it. So it's been around close to 3,000 years or so, give or take. And no matter how ambitious or good the movie is, and I hope it is, there's no way it can touch on all of these themes that, including the ones Campbell's identified. So a quick internet search says that the themes are homecoming, memory, guilt, and human fallibility. And those are all in Homer for sure. But Campbell says there's something deeper going on here. If you're not familiar with Joseph Campbell, no problem. He was a famous professor of comparative mythology. You've probably heard his greatest hits, Follow Your Bliss, that saying, or the popular Bill Moyer series on PBS, The Power of Myth. That's how I found him, or he found me. But his biggest hit is The Hero's Journey, and that's really making the pop culture rounds the past few years. It's remarkable, and it's such a wise gift that he gave us. It's definitely worth checking out. Now, the Odyssey is the original hero's journey, and Campbell describes it in that same familiar theme. You got to cross the threshold, go on an adventure, and once you're out there, you've got to overcome obstacles, experience something transcendent, integrate it, and return home. That's the gist. There's a lot more to it. That's an oversimplification. So if you want the details, they're everywhere online, and they're worth checking out. All right. For the Odyssey, Campbell says that Odysseus' hero's journey is really about reconciling the masculine divine powers, an excess of them that he needed to prosecute the Trojan War, with the divine feminine powers represented by the goddess. And the part that hit me so hard was Campbell's explanation of how the goddesses inspire us and touch our lives in so many ways. In the Odyssey, the goddess works through Hera, Athena, and Aphrodite to start the war and getting through it. And on the way home, Odysseus has to go through Circe, Calypso, and Nausicaa. It's cool, and I'll try to explain. In prep for this video, I read and reread and then outlined chapter 5 of his book, Goddesses, Mysteries of the Feminine Divine. And everything I'm saying in here, I took from that. These are his insights, not mine. I'm just passing them on. Now, this being the internet, before we get started, I want to clarify something. When I say masculine divine, feminine divine, that's not referring to gender or gender roles. In this context, Campbell's referring to the energies that are beyond time and space, and certainly gender. We give them a zillion names and religions, entire religions, but the Greeks happen to personify them as gods and goddesses. We're made up of these energies, and we experience them in daily life, and that's why classic myths can still be relevant. Okay, so the movie. Like any great hero franchise, the Odyssey has some prequels. Episode 1 is The Judgment of Paris, and Episode 2 is The Iliad. I'll touch on them really quickly so that Episode 3, The Odyssey, makes a little bit more sense. The Iliad's about the Trojan War, you know that, the famous affair between Helen of Sparta / Troy and Paris that kicked it off. But Helen and Paris are only together because of Episode 1, The Judgment of Paris. The Judgment of Paris is worth checking out. It's great, but in short, Paris, he's this young prince of Troy, and he has to judge who is the fairest amongst Hera, Athena, and Aphrodite. Now, Fairest is a translation, and sometimes the Judgment of Paris is referred to as a beauty contest. It's not what it is. It's not that superficial. It's much more than that. Now, here Campbell references the work of a pioneering classicist by the name of Jane Harrison. I had to look her up, but she was a scholar from the 1800s, early 1900s, late 1800s, early 1900s. And she identified this key theme in the Judgment of Paris. And this was the cool part. The three goddesses represent inspirations, in this case, options for the young man setting out in the direction of his life. I read the parts of her book before making the video, and it's from 1903, and she pulls no punches. She's remarkably unapologetic, and it was fun reading how she took issue with the beauty contest simplification. Anyway, I'm referencing Campbell, but know that he's referencing her. He took this theme she created and built on it and expanded it to the Odyssey. Okay, so this is Paris's rite of passage, deciding the path he's going to take from being a boy to a man. It's time to grow up and direct all that masculine power into something useful, hopefully. The divine feminine made him, so she already knows this. And one of her roles is to inspire and to channel that energy. One more character in the Judgment of Paris, you've probably heard of Hermes. He's the messenger of the gods. Now the gods send him to lead us through transitions, whether we're ready, willing, and able, or whether we're fighting, kicking, and screaming. Either way, Hermes says a change is going to come. Sam Cooke reference. Change is everywhere, so you've probably felt Hermes around. Anyway, Hermes forces Paris to pick a lane that's going to define his life's work. Okay, here's the cool part from Harrison and Campbell. The goddesses are three archetypes. So Hera, she's the queen of the gods and a matron, and she inspires dignity and power. Today we'd call it status. Athena, she's the virgin warrior goddess. She inspires heroic deeds and glory, basically accomplishment. And Aphrodite, she represents desire, the impulse to create, lust to create life, art, whatever. And it's no coincidence that her husband was Hephaestus, and he was the blacksmith of the gods, and he made things. Her lover was Ares, he made war, god of war. Now, we might not like to think about it in these terms, but love and war are often two sides of the same coin in mythology. And the saying, all is fair in love and war, that comes from these myths. These are energies in counterplay with one another. It's like Venus and Mars, the planets with Aphrodite's and Ares' name in Roman. They circle the earth in a dance. And it's said that war is hell, and I believe it. But it's also said that creation comes from destruction. New potentialities kind of spring to life from the ashes of destruction. Think of the Phoenix myth from a different system. So Aphrodite represents desire, the energy that inspires us to build, to create, and yes, to destroy. There's many goddesses, but these are the big three for purposes of this myth. And why we call them three separate personalities and names, they each contains the whole goddess. Think of them as spotlights on certain aspects of the divine. If you think about it in your own life, it makes sense. None of us are all one thing. Your life, my life, it's one part this, two parts that. If you're watching this on my channel, you can see that I love to make music. It's just a part. I can't tell you why. It's just for fun, and time disappears when I'm doing it. An executive can't tell you why she wants to be the boss lady, despite all the obstacles thrown in her way. And how do real heroes like police, firefighters, and soldiers, put themselves in danger every day for us? I think if you ask anybody why something matters to them, they probably will rationalize or fumble to describe what a calling feels like. That's how these energies work on us. It's beautiful, and it's a mystery, and it's what makes the world go around. So what about Paris? What calls him? Is it going to be status? Is it going to be glory? Or is it going to be desire? Well, Aphrodite promises Paris the most beautiful woman in the world, Helen. And that's the door he goes through. And the result of that desire? Well, it creates both a love and a war. Okay, episode 2. In the Iliad, that's the Trojan War, and In that war, men do unspeakable things to each other. Campbell says the Iliad's about an excess of the masculine energies, and the Odyssey's about returning to the goddess and rebalancing the two. Now note that masculine and feminine on their own, they're not the problem in themselves. Both are required. It's the excess that's the problem. Balance is the virtue that the myth is trying to teach us. So finally, on to episode 3, the Odyssey. In simplest terms, it's about returning home. But why does it take 10 years and all of those trials? Well, because in the state he's in, the gods will not allow Odysseus to return home yet. He's been mainlining war for 10 years. He's a maniac. After the destruction of Troy and all the atrocities, what's the first thing he and his crew do? Well, the first port they land in, they sack, they kill everybody. The people they don't kill, they rape and enslave. I mean, they are in no state to return to civilization. So the scene is set, and here comes the classic Campbell's hero's journey. Odysseus needs to cross the threshold of fear and get started. First stop, the Cyclops. The journey home from war is a transition, and whenever you need to make a transition, you can bet there's going to be a gatekeeper there that you're going to have to get past. In the Odyssey, that's the Cyclops, Polyphemus. Hopefully there'll be some cool special effects in the movie, we'll see. But to Campbell, the Cyclops represents the fear that you have to pass through to get on to bigger and better things. And if you can't defeat the fear, the Cyclops will literally and figuratively eat you alive. Fear comes from our ego, and Odysseus sheds his ego and gets past the Cyclops. Instead of bragging about his deeds and his name, he tells the Cyclops his name is No Man. And I'm not going to get into it all, but hopefully the movie, it'll make sense once you see that. Hey there, sorry to interrupt. Since I made that video, a couple things have happened. One, I got a sorely needed haircut. Two, I went grocery shopping and got some apples. Red, not golden. And if you follow the Judgment of Paris, you get that joke. And third, the reviews have come out on the movie, and I had the pleasure of hearing one or two. And I learned that the movie does not explain the no man joke that Odysseus pulled on the Cyclops. So I'm going to explain it here really quickly so you understand. Odysseus tells the Cyclops asks Odysseus who he is, and Odysseus says, "I am no man." And then later on, when the Cyclops is screaming and asking his friends for help, they say, "Who's hurting you?" And he responds, "No man is hurting me." And they dismiss him as just crying wolf, and Odysseus escapes. He escapes because he outwits the Cyclops, okay? And he also sheds his ego. Those are kind of two important things. And it sounds like, I guess I just want to land this point, which is Odysseus is the hero of the Odyssey and distinguished himself from all the other characters in the Iliad because he's a silver-tongued devil. He's smarter than everyone else. He's not another humorless, brooding meathead with muscles that Hollywood seems to be so in love with these days. I digress. Back to the show and long-haired Mike. Enjoy. But finally, something I thought was really cool. Campbell says the one eye of the Cyclops represents the bullseye. And that's the narrow window we have when fear arises to get through and get past it with a moment's courage. Okay, so he's past the fear and on the journey. Odysseus has to go through now 3 initiations and out, integrate, and return. And Campbell's insight is that what Odysseus' journey is really about is reintegrating with the goddess. But how? He has to balance the masculine and feminine divine energies in him. Odysseus is going to get knocked down a few pegs by 3 goddesses, Circe, Calypso, and Nausicaa. They represent the same goddess energies from the Judgment of Paris that started this whole safari. For his trip home, he can't go around the goddess. He's got to go through. So Circe is the first one. Odysseus meets her, and she represents temptation and desire just like Aphrodite did. And she turns his crew into swine. Now, you might ask, why do all of Odysseus' crew get eaten, destroyed, turned to swine, killed? They're like uncredited extras from Central Casting. It's like, hey, what's the name of your role? Dead Guy Scene 2. Well, that's because they're a literary device to contrast versus Odysseus. Their divine masculine impulses out of control. And unlike Odysseus, they don't learn on the journey home. They don't evolve, and they fail every test. Desire turns them into swine, and one way or another, their rapaciousness gets them destroyed. They can't calm down, so they can't get home. Before setting him on his way, Circe sends Odysseus down into the underworld to meet the spirit of a guy by the name of Tiresias. And in a myth that Homer's audiences would have known, Tiresias lived a life both as a man and as a woman. So he's uniquely capable of showing Odysseus of how that balance works and how really we're all just one. But that's just one more clue that Campbell's onto something here. Through the first test of balancing masculine and feminine, the second one is initiation into the light of consciousness. Now that's Campbell's fancy way of saying Odysseus has to experience the transcendent energy. This energy, again, is beyond male and female dualities or our experience of time. People often call it experiencing God or rapture. More accurately, probably think of it as nirvana. And here's where the famous sirens come in. I love this part. Their song is the music of the universe, and it can hit you so hard that you forget your earthly duties and wreck your ship on the shore. It's a transcendent mystical experience. It sounds awesome, but why is that dangerous? Well, Campbell says that you can get lost in it, but in the meantime, you've got a destiny of human impulses you're supposed to be fulfilling. Anyway, Odysseus cleverly has his cake and eats it too. He gets to hear the siren's transcendent song, but he's lashed to the mast, so he can't get off course. And now the third and final initiation, it's return and reconciliation, where he integrates this learning and the transcendent and comes home. On Odysseus's return, he has Poseidon and two more divine feminine to contend with on the home stretch. Calypso is the parallel to Hera, and she's the stabilizing matron. Her name means she who conceals. The theme of this scene is love mixed with pride and power dynamics. She wants to make Odysseus her immortal husband, but again, Hermes comes this time to her to say, time to get on with it, time to move on. Change is going to come, and she lets Odysseus go after 7 years. But he's not out of the woods yet. Leaving Calypso, he's shipwrecked by Poseidon, Poseidon's avenging his son, the Cyclops. These are more gods symbolizing the curveballs that life throws at us just when you think you're out of the woods. Now, the last feminine divine that Odysseus must reconcile with is the princess Nausicaa. She's pure of heart and virginal like Athena. He washes up on her shore, and at her father's court, he tells his story. He reclaims his name and his past, finally. He's no longer no man. He's his old self, Odysseus, again, and this is the return. She really wants him to stay, but forgetting herself in a really loving and kind gesture, she helps him return to Ithaca, saying, "Never forget me, for I gave you life." I think that's pretty cool. Interestingly, her name means burner of ships. And so now he's turned the corner and he's headed for home. Hey there, it's Haircut Mike interrupting again. I promise for the last time. Nausicaa, I understand she didn't make the cut of the movie. And I also understand that they took all of the sex out of the movie between Odysseus and the three feminine divine that he encounters on the way home. You know, that's fine. These are Nolan's choices. It's his movie. He paid for it. They paid for it. They're entitled to do with it what they want. I just wanted to chime in on a couple things to say, you know, when you take out that sexual dynamic, that's the furnace that is fueling a lot of this inspiration with these goddesses. And, without it, I suppose you could understand why some of these characters are drawn to each other, and that's fine. But it is an integral part of the poem, and I just wanted to note of that. The second piece is that Nausicaa, for my money, she represents the biggest temptation for Odysseus, preventing him to get home, because she kind of, to me anyway, represents the ideal domestic life. She's kind, she's helpful, she's caring, and she's kind of the last test before he gets home. Merging her into Calypso, which I understand the movie did, is a choice. But I just wanted to give her her due for purposes of this, purpose of this video. And if Campbell's right that the Odyssey is really about reconciling with the divine feminine, it's kind of a shame that we get 2/3 of that divine feminine. And the women watching this video will say, well, welcome to the party. We've been getting 2/3 since the beginning of time. Back to the show. That's the big arc of the hero's journey, Odysseus returning to the goddess. But just because it might be fun spotting them in the movie, here's some other symbols that Campbell references. Again, the Odyssey is all symbols. Every character, name, place, they all mean something. So check out Campbell, but quickly, cloth. So Penelope, Circe, Calypso, they all weave, and Nausicaa, she launders. And Campbell says that this is not just a domestic reference or a clever way to keep suitors at bay. It's the feminine divine weaving the tapestry of the world. Pretty cool. Numbers. There's numbers all over it. There's lots of references to 12 ships, 12 sons and daughters, and these are lunar calendar and astrological references. The war is 10 years, and the Odyssey is 10 years, so a total of 20. Campbell interprets this 20-year period as the time it takes to reconcile or synchronize the solar or masculine calendar with the lunar or feminine calendar. That's how long it takes them to align. And you can argue whether this was intended or Campbell's finding things, but it was a practical issue in Homer's time that didn't get resolved until the Julian calendar, like 800 years later. As a little side note, I saw it somewhere, I think on the Rest is History podcast, that Caesar got the Julian calendar from the time he visited Cleopatra and her court in Egypt. Now, it's just speculation, of course, but if it were true, it would really be cool and put a bow on this balancing of the masculine and feminine, if true. Okay, more on the masculine feminine theme. There are rams everywhere and boars and pigs everywhere. And Campbell says that the rams represent the solar masculine power, and the boars represent the lunar feminine power. Why? Because their tusk resembles the crescent moon. And how does Odysseus get recognized when he returns to Ithaca? Because he's got a scar on his thigh from where a boar gored him as a child. So another further evidence that Campbell's onto something here. Zooming out, Campbell says that, or he thinks that the Iliad and the Odyssey together are the Greeks reconciling their own past, their ancient agricultural feminine gods with the warrior gods of the invading Indo-Europeans. But that's a whole nother ball of wax not going to get into. Okay, well, I hope you enjoyed that, and I hope it makes the movie more interesting to you, but here's a couple final thoughts. It's likely that there was a Troy and that it was destroyed. Consensus thinks that they found the ruins in Turkey to prove it. But as far as the characters go, they're symbols and archetypes. They're not historical people. For sure, there were people playing these roles when Troy was around, when it got destroyed, and every day before and since. They're not going away. You can spot them in your daily life if you know what to look for. It's a fun game, and that's why the myths are cool. But if you find yourself attached to these characters being historical facts, or whether the actors look like you think they should, you're robbing yourself of their true power. Campbell had a couple of great sayings that illustrate this point. Number one, if myth is translated into a literal fact, then myth is a lie. But if you read it as a reflection of the world inside of you, then it's true. And here's another one. Mythology is other people's religion, and religion is a misunderstanding of mythology. Have fun chewing on that one for a while. If you're interested in learning more about Campbell, I'd recommend The Hero of a Thousand Faces, Pathways to Bliss, and a great starter and probably the easiest read, Reflections on the Art of Living. Everything in this video, though, is about the Odysseys from the book Goddesses, Mysteries of the Feminine Divine, Chapter 5. And I'll put links to those and the Joseph Campbell Foundation, which is doing a great job keeping his work alive in the post. And this is just a sliver of what he had to say about it. And I'm just a tourist, so I'm sure I didn't do it justice. And his is just one view of many. You know, some classicists might say he's overreaching, reading too much into it. But myths are bottomless wells of insights, and we find whatever we want or whatever we need in them. And his insights on the goddess really changed my life for the better, so I'm passing it on. If you like it, please do the same. Here's to the classics and to a life well lived. Enjoy the movie. Thank you. Thank you very much.